start. Welcome, everyone. My name is Kathleen Lane. I'm the Executive Director of the EdCan Network and your host for today's conversation with David McFall on imagining the school of tomorrow today. The EdCan Network is a national bilingual charity connecting education professionals, researchers, and partners to share research and practical expertise to enhance learning and well-being in our schools and school systems. We publish free, evidence-informed tools and resources and host a wide variety of virtual events to connect educators from across the country. EdCan's work takes place on the traditional territories of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who have stewarded and cared for these lands for generations. As we get started today, please take a moment to reflect on where you are joining from and the opportunities and lessons that the land offers you. In 2018, Pierre Elliott Trudeau Elementary School in Gatineau, Quebec was selected to be part of the Lab École project due to their innovative, progressive, and flexible school philosophy and willingness to think differently. It is my pleasure to introduce you to David McFall, the principal at Pierre Elliott Trudeau Elementary School, who will share some of the innovative and progressive practices that they have adopted to increase belonging, attachment, and engagement, and to share some practical examples that you can consider bringing into your own practice. David, welcome. How are you doing today? I see you are celebrating.
Yes, hello, Kathleen, and thank you very much for welcoming me to the podcast. As you can see, we're recording this on March 17th. Just happens to be St. Patrick's Day, and I have a little bit of an Irish accent, so how cliche of having to wear a little green top hat to start the conversation.
So can you get us started by setting the context for Pierre Elliott Trudeau School? Where is it located? How big is it? Who are the students that you serve?
Yeah, Pierre Elliott Trudeau Elementary School, so I'll refer to our acronym as PEATS. And PEATS is located, it's in Quebec, and it's in Western Quebec. And it's a very unique and interesting school. We're part of the English School Board in Quebec. There's 9 English school boards. And as many people probably know, that the minority language clause in the Constitution really protects French throughout the country, but it also protects English within Quebec. So our school is downtown Gatineau. It used to be called downtown Hull. And you can almost see the Canadian Parliament buildings from our school. So we're located very close to Ottawa. And that's an interesting uniqueness because our proximity to Ontario, knowing that each province has a different education system, and English education is restrictive in Quebec. You have to have a parent attend an English elementary school for at least half of their education career. So people who are eligible for English school in Quebec, the numbers are dwindling throughout the province. However, because we're so close to Ontario, anyone who just moves into our area has most likely been to an English school and is eligible for English education. So we've got quite a large and growing population. It's an elementary school, kindergarten 4 to grade 6. And we have approximately 560 students.
All right, awesome. And all sorts of sociodemographic backgrounds, or?
Definitely. It's considered socioeconomic. In Quebec, they give each school a factor or a ranking. And there's 2 indicators that it's based on. One is household income, and the other is mother's level of education. And it's even more interesting, the fact that the mother's level of education is the one that determines most of the grants and measures that we get at the school. For household level of income, we're socioeconomic 9, 10 being the lowest. And for mother's level of education, we bounce between a 7 and an 8. So beyond that side of the more disadvantaged schools, but I'm sure many of us know that's with some of those, what seemed disadvantages, it gives you these new eyes, new opportunities to really have to think differently and think and do think differently. So
absolutely,
look at it as such an advantage.
And when I had the opportunity to visit the school last spring, you would not know that. It's a gorgeous school, and I know part of that is due to the work you did with Lab École. But just getting selected to join the Lab École project, that came from you were already starting to think differently. And what I want to just touch on is in the article you wrote for us a couple months ago in Education Canada, you talked about how children themselves haven't really changed over the past decades, centuries, millennia, but the context for raising children has changed. And that as school leaders, you can't really change the social context of society, but you can control the educational philosophy of the school. So maybe let's start there. What is the education philosophy at Pete's, and how did that lead to you becoming selected as part of the Lab École project?
I think all people in education realize that a philosophy is evolving. It has to evolve. It has to align and match with changes and challenges that society is confronted with. And yes, I opened the article with with the fact that children haven't changed over centuries, millennia. Mm-hmm. However, the conditions for raising children are changing, and quite profoundly in recent years. And I think in my own childhood, or many people, educators or friends, neighbors that I talk to, when we talk about childhood, we think of being on the streets and in play and climbing trees and being free and the adventure and that sense of wonder. And that was all part of the good and the bad and the ups and the downs of childhood, where you acquired this ability to socialize, to deal with conflict, to fall, to get up, and to build a type of resilience. It wasn't perfect, and we know that. But when you think of the development of character and personality and being able to overcome, being able to resolve, and then your coordination and your balance and your play and your skills, all that just happen naturally when you're bubbled in this safe place of play. And what we're seeing more and more frequently, and it's maybe partly because of the uniqueness of the school, that we seem to have anywhere from 30 to 40% of our population are very transient. They're not homeowners, and they seem to move. They're from Ottawa, they're from up north, they move, they rent, and they keep moving. So they're not anchored or put their roots in a particular community. So we realize we've got a large number of students that possibly been, even at elementary school, 1, 2, 3, or even 4 different schools in their elementary career. So when they're coming to the school, our very first goal is to make sure they get anchored. They get a sense of feeling of belonging somehow to an activity, to a club, to a sports team, to a staff member, to other students. So it's imperative that we find a way to matchmake, to make sure students feel at ease and as comfortable as possible in our environments, because we know that anyone coming into a new school, it's stressful. And if it's not stressful, or if a child isn't feeling any anxiousness at all, that means they're maybe shutting down a little bit and perhaps even a bit emotionally numb. So then it's even harder to reach those students and get them attached and get them anchored and get them motivated and engaged in school life and learning. So the goal, the number one object, is just to try to make students feel less stress. And then how we do that, through the matchmaking, through the different activities and the type of learning that we want students to engage in, because we know not every student's coming to the school, sit in that chair and listen for 50 minutes or 60 minutes at a time and digest all the information. And it's just not, that doesn't work for all students, I don't believe, but it really doesn't work for those students who are new to an environment.
Absolutely. So I know you've talked about in your article lots of different ways that you're creating that belonging and the attachment, that anchoring within the school. Can you share some of the examples of what gets the kids excited to come and connected to the school community?
It seems so simple, yet it's almost profound and complex in how you do that in a school, because this was an old 1953 school building, many incarnations of different schools over the years, and high school and a middle school and elementary school for the last 20 plus years. and it just became overcrowded. And so we didn't have every office, every room, every cupboard get converted into classroom or an office. And so eventually we said, what are we going to do? Because there was this feeling of franticness in the building. And that added even more stress to people who were pretty laid back and anchored and connected. So we started to think, do you know what's missing here? There's something. Kids are coming into the school with more stress than we've ever noticed. In the building, they're more frantic. We've got to move outdoors. And it was out of necessity. We said, you look around, there's nowhere left in the building. Oh, but there's beautiful space outside. There's two giant schoolyards. There's a forest, downtown hall, an area with trees round the corner. And we just day by day started taking kindergarten students, other students outside. So the first thing was just getting outdoors. And that starting point, I can go on to that a little bit later, just almost revolutionized our thinking and what is required for any student, a 5-year-old coming into a 12-year-old who's maybe showing stress, maybe not showing stress, but what they needed. And then when you start to build on that program, but as I said, I'll go into that in a few minutes.
I mean, I'm really curious. Uh-oh. All right.
Somebody phones and that set the whole thing off.
Okay, gotcha. All good.
All right.
Makes me glad we don't have a live audience
Oh,
today.
yeah.
So, David, I'm actually really curious to just jump right into the experience of taking the kids outside. We know there's a whole lot of health benefits to bringing kids outside, but it's also something that in the more traditional way of thinking about education, how do you actually run a classroom outside? And how did, aside from it being necessity, how did you get your staff on board to take education outside? What does it look like?
It, starting an outdoor program or outdoor education or outdoor learning, it has to begin with a spark. It has to begin with, as you said, Kathleen, out of necessity, but also when you can recognize passionate people that are maybe my ears weren't open to listening at first, or maybe my eyes weren't open, but a couple of kindergarten teachers were saying, we would really like to take our students out more. And I was like, okay. And we'd like to take them to the forest. And I was like, what forest? We're downtown Hull. There's no forest. David, it's just up the hill and down the other side of the hill. It's about 200 meters from the school. And I went, oh, I run that way home every night from school. And that night I ran past and went, oh, who put this forest here? And it's ridiculous. It had always been there, obviously, but my eyes weren't open to seeing it. If your eyes aren't open to something and you're not aware it can be right in front of you, and you don't use the beautiful space here in Gatineau. There's a beautiful Gatineau Hills, and we've got some schools that are very close to the Gatineaus, and I don't know if they're using the outdoors as well as they could because it's in their backyard. So once your eyes are open to something, people bring the idea forward. It's like, let's go. Let's see what this looks like. And with the passionate teachers and the faith that we had as a school, as a staff, to really dedicate resources to invest um, in the program, it just grew each year from an hour a day to 2 hours a day to full days. And we're in Gatineau, in center of Canada, or central eastern Canada. And a day like today went from plus 16 yesterday to minus 16 with a wind chill today. But everybody's outside. They go out every day, and it's unless it's dangerous, of course, it's slipping. But it's incredible once you dress warmly and you have the staff that are willing and excited to provide that kind of learning for children. That becomes the norm. That's the culture. And then through pollination of more people see the benefits to the kids, then more people want to be involved in how other classes can go outside. So it starts small. It starts from a passion in a couple of teachers, but now it's developed into a program we regularly have teachers from other schools come and watch the students. So they do their centers on campus, and and they have moving parts, they have stumps, but they have stations. So they have learning stations, they have math stations, and they're in charge of their learning. So the teachers are facilitating and moving around, but I'll go out and I'm in awe. And if I bring any teachers, they're looking at this, and maybe we're a little lucky as a smaller school board. Some of the larger school boards, everything has to be, moving parts may not be allowed, or tree stumps may not be allowed, but we still use that approach to teaching and learning outdoors. But by doing that, the kids are in charge, and you just see them using their imagination and using acorns or rocks or snowballs or ice, whatever they're doing, to count, to graph, to map, to but it's this make believe, this play, that's all of a sudden you're seeing all these skills, the collaboration skills, the socializing, the figuring things out, the creativity, the communication. So all those C's that you want in school and in learning, and they're just doing it naturally. The teachers are so gifted at knowing when to give the students to be in charge of the learning, creating the environment, and just letting them flourish. And the more and more you put children in situations, whether it's 5-year-old, 4-year-old kindergartens, all the way up to grade sixes, and I'm sure beyond in high school, they never let you down. They always flourish. Sometimes we're just hesitant to put children in these positions. Some of the things I heard the very first time that we introduced this to grade 2, 3, 4 teachers, they said, "Oh, if you go outside, the kids will just run off. I can't do that." And it's just a myth, because the second they leave the yard or the school, kids are even closer to the teachers. They feel safe close to that adult. They want to be close. So it's counterintuitive. It's the opposite of what many people maybe initially think of why not to do something.
Yeah.
It's quite incredible to just watch, like a scientist, of what's the best learning for children is when they're in charge of their own learning, and it's created, the planning and the conditions have been created by the teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to provide guidance because little kids don't know what they don't know, but they're so brilliant. And you've taken this philosophy of play and creativity and imagination and brought it throughout the learning in the school. It's not just something that happens outside. You know, in the article, you talked about all sorts of, play-based experiential learning opportunities that the students have. Can you share more about what happens inside the building as well?
Yeah, I've been really lucky on this journey of being an elementary school principal, which, by the way, I think is being a former high school teacher, high school principal, soccer coach. I think being in an elementary school, being a principal for a long time, 16 years at the same school, which is quite remarkable, uh, is just the journey is very special. And I've been very privileged to be. I've been part of the Dr. Neufeld Institutes from British Columbia, Dr. Neufeld, Dr. McNamara, and I learned through the attachment-based developmental approach to 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 supporting students learning and seeing with the eyes of seeing a child from the inside out. What does a child need? What is best for a child? Sometimes we impose the learning, we impose this system on our children, but when we start to look at it through the lens of what do children need, what's missing, and you just this maturation, this process of maturation, where you see some children that are 5, 6, 7, they haven't got to this adaptive stage yet, and they're still foul with frustration, and every time they hit an obstacle, they can't get over it. They just temper tantrum, and so they're non-adaptive. They don't have their executive function. There's so much that's still to be developed and to unfold through nature and through the support of caring adults. The guidance, this roadmap, this framework of understanding healthy child development brought me to this place of we have to rethink how schools are organized. We have to make sure we can help facilitate these stages of maturation for children through play, through learning, through socialization. And Dr. Neufeld has the absolute best line for this to when I have this long-winded answer to your question. What is the art of this? How do you do this? And his line is under the innocuous camouflage of being up to nothing at all. And so it's just so beautiful. And it's one of those lines that just it's guided me and it's been in the back of my mind that true learning happens when we don't even realize. We're in that flow. We're in that place where we don't even know. So it could be anything. It could be our grade 3. We dedicate the year to the arts, to music, to we have an incredible music teacher. Well, she's an English language arts but is a musician, and her and another our choir leader, they write a play, they write a musical, and we take time from English language arts, from French, from math, and we add more to the arts. And all year they're learning about music, they're learning about singing, the word. It's mostly singing, but it's got the actions and it takes a whole year. And then they present this in front of the school, in front of all the parents, and over the course of the year, learning to read notes. And it's every single child in grade 3. They're just immersed in the arts, and they fall in love. They fall in love, and every single time they go above and beyond and show us that, wow. When kids are put in these situations, when they're given a chance, they just again they use that word flourish, and so they're not only learning, they're having fun, they're expressing their themselves in ways that perhaps they wouldn't have had a chance to express. And throughout that year, you can see the change, the adaptive process in their maturation. They're starting to mature. I don't even notice it. They're just having fun. Confidence is coming because they're singing, they're doing the dance, they're moving, and then they're performing in front of a larger audience. And all these stages just happen naturally. And by the time they get to grade 4, they've just moved along to another level of confidence, another level of excitement and engagement. And that's one step. And then other areas are just, well, kids like to cook, kids like to be outdoors, kids want to garden, they want to learn about nutrition, but they don't want to sit in the class and learn nutritious facts. They want to see plants grow. They want to harvest the tomatoes or the cucumbers or the lettuce, and they want to help. What do they do with that? And so they're learning how to cook afterwards. We've had this fascination with gardening and nutrition and cooking. And we had a kitchen that was the size of a cupboard. It was tiny. I don't know how we were able to do it, but we still pulled off miracles. Part of this Lab École was to change the conditions of a school. If you could change the conditions through the architecture, the light, the woods, and you could focus on nutrition with a state-of-the-art culinary teaching kitchen. Just imagine what you can do then. So that's what the Lab École has given us. But the other activities, from gardening and cooking and singing and outdoor learning,
Yeah.
and it's just anything that a teacher comes and asks, I've got a science project. Can we go down to the Ottawa River? The Ottawa River Keepers are doing a study. Can we weave science into? Of course you can. The architecture in the neighborhood, some of the sites and some of the indigenous areas that we do these walks, and we have learning that's attached to the walks through the community. Everything that a teacher thinks, I believe this is a good way for kids to learn, and it gets them out of the classroom. I don't think we've ever said no. So it's
Yeah.
just building on everybody's passion, where they see that kids could get more engaged and more excited and find more joy in school and learning. So it's, yeah, we don't know where this will end up, but it's
I mean, as you talk about it, it just seems so obvious that, like,
yeah,
if we go pull, like, look at the plants or look at the tadpoles on the riverbanks, that's going to be more engaging than sitting in a classroom looking at a slide on the screen or a website or whatever that might be for the little kid. It's so obvious. You're integrating the different subjects. Music has so much mathematics in it. um, the physical activity that naturally gets embedded when you get up out of your seats, and whether you're cooking, gardening, or putting on a musical, like, we're moving all of a sudden. It just seems so natural, and yet it's not the traditional model of school. So I can't imagine it was, the teachers are excited, clearly, but like, there must have been a mindset change. And then how do you also get the parents on board with taking the kids out of the classroom? Because that might be dangerous.
it's there's a bit of a funny story. Being Irish, I can't help myself with a funny story with the parents and our kindergarten outdoor program.
Mm.
So we have two classes that are full day outdoor, and two classes that are a hybrid of outdoor and indoor, more traditional.
Yeah.
And it's great because we can have this longitudinal study of kids being totally outdoors, starting their school
Mm.
experience, and ones that are not outdoors as much. But when the word got out that there was 34 spots for the exclusive outdoor learning program, and the registration at kindergarten was at the school board, it opened at 10 o'clock in the morning, and there was a lineup forming at about 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And then it got to the point where it was 34, 35, 36. And it was a little bit of jostling to see who was 34, 35. So we realized we might have to get a security the next time, or give numbers out to people when they registered, because the word had got out in the neighborhood, and that parents wanted this because they know their busy lives. As
Yeah.
parents, we all know that it's hard to carve out the time in nature and free play for our children in today's society. Everybody is busier, and we value it. And many people can't find it in their schedules, whether you're in sports or piano or other activities. People want their kids in nature. They want them to play. They know the benefits. So if a child is getting it for 6 hours a day at school, it's very, very enticing and appreciated by most parents. And so the challenge is, how do we grow it through the school, the
Yeah.
grade one all the way up to grade six? And so the challenge each year is, how much can we put into grade one, into grade two, into grade three? We went through COVID and then construction at the school. So the construction was about 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years, which was very challenging. So just everything gets off kilter a little bit in the normal practices. So it got stalled after kindergarten and grade one. So the goal is to create a class that goes through grade one, grade two class, to grade three, grade four, grade five, grade six. So some could have at least 50% outdoors
Mm-hmm.
throughout their elementary experience. That's the goal. So that's what
Yeah.
we're aspiring to.
Yeah. And you're aspiring to it. Do you see it spreading across other schools? What
It's
would make that possible, I guess, is my big question.
I think what has to happen, but it's hard with not all teachers are going to be passionate. Not all teachers are going to want to have their classroom outside, but many do. I really feel that there has to be into the curriculum, into the subject time allocation minutes. I think there has to be a minimum of time outdoors. If kindergarten say was 1 hour outdoors minimum, or 2 hours outdoors, or unless something's, and it will be difficult, you'd have to go through, but if it's not legislated, it's recommended that for healthy child development, children must be outdoors for X amount of minutes in a school day, because they're not getting it at home, not as much anyway. And so if they're not getting it as much at home, and their development is perhaps being stalled a little bit by not being in play or not being in nature as much, some experts, health experts, government officials have to recognize that it's a requirement for children. It's part of their childhood. And if it's missing, how do we help include it?
So yeah, just continuing to pull the evidence together and continuing to present it. And then I guess that leads to the next question, is the attachment to school. Like, how does it affect absenteeism? Because we know that's a big question. Have you had noticeable improvement?
It's interesting when you look at the kindergarten classes that are exclusively outdoors, there's almost never a child away. And if I was to look at the absenteeism in other grades, it can be quite high.
Yeah.
For those classes that are not outdoors as much. It's kids, it's interesting. I read Michael Fulham's most recent article while we're sleeping, or even Andy Hargreaves, the repair shop, and I was fortunate enough to have a conversation with Andy Hargreaves. He was a keynote speaker at our print administrators spring conference, and we were talking about absenteeism, and similar to what Michael said in his article, Andy said, I talked about the alarming rate of absenteeism in schools, and Andy goes, why is that? And I said, I don't know. This since COVID, maybe since COVID and people stayed home, they're just more comfortable. He goes, no, they don't want to come to schools because it's boring. It's what they don't want to come to the schools that are here today, because people are showing that they're bored of school, or it's irrelevant or whatever, because of absenteeism increasing. So schools got to change. And it was reaffirming to me to know that whether it's Michael Fulham or Andy Hargreaves are saying schools are not adapting, schools are not changing, and as a result, more and more people are staying home, or going to private school, or going to forest school, or going somewhere else. Schools have to change. And so it was good to hear that from him. So I think I'm on the right track.
So we have these, big thinkers in education who are saying one thing, you're seeing it in your absenteeism data. Does it also show up in the student behavior? Do the kids who are outside just have more opportunities to let off steam in ways that are healthy and acceptable? Or do we still see the same kind of, because we do hear about student behavioral challenges across the country. Like, does that kind of really change?
Oh, it's changed. And cite Dr. Neufeld again. One of his mantras is emotion seeks expression. You can't stop emotion. Once we get riled up, it has to come out. We can maybe direct it, but you can't stop it. Emotion outdoors, it just is released naturally. It's just through movement, through climbing, through laughter, through running, through up and down hills. It just gets released. And I'm either the laziest principal or the smartest. I don't know. I'm somewhere in between, but I don't want to have to deal with badly behaved kids all day. So if I can find a way that I don't have to deal with badly behaved children, that just makes life easier. And from the kids that have been outdoors in all these years, I don't think one child has ever been sent to my office from outdoors. I can't say the same from classrooms in the school. So from a self-preservation point of view, having children outside and they don't get sent to the principal's office, that's a beautiful thing. So to answer your question, Kathleen, the behaviors, it's just this natural release of emotion gets expressed in positive ways. And as
Yeah.
Dr. McFall says, you can redirect the energy, you can't
Mhm.
stop it, and it plays itself out the way it's supposed to, the way nature intended. So
Yeah.
yeah, it
Okay.
sounds corny, and but it's true because I've seen it for 10
So you
years.
shared teachers are more excited and passionate, students are more engaged, they're showing up regularly, their behavior is expressed in more positive ways, their emotions come out, there's less challenging behavior. Has there been any challenges associated with this?
I, I guess the the dream would be to have this revolution sweep across the school, across the district and nation, to have everybody appreciate the value and the importance of children being outdoors. And I think if we all know if there's anything about education, change is slow. Change is very slow, and sometimes I feel like we haven't moved at all. And then I have to actually go back 10 years and think where we were and where we are today. And I go, how did we get here? But you don't even notice it because it feels frustratingly slow in the
Yeah.
change, and more people wanting to be outdoors. But it's you can't fault anybody. Is it more comfortable in a classroom for a teacher and many students? Of course it is. And more resources? Yes. But what's best for children that we're seeing is when they're outdoors, especially in
Mhm.
those kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2 years. But it's our grade 3s to 6s that need it more than anybody
Yeah.
because they're not
Yeah.
moving as much. So that's why we have to
Mhm.
get them moving. At least the learning through cooking and
Yeah.
through move. And we'll get into, I'm sure, the Lab École spaces, the extension in a bit, but rethinking how students learn and getting them out of the classroom, whether it's inside or outside,
Yeah.
is the key to starting to shift that change that we want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, just looking at the time, we probably should talk about that extension and the ways you're getting the kids out of the classroom, but still inside the building.
Yeah. Can you imagine? It's been a long process. It started in 2018 when we were selected as one of 6 schools in Quebec, Lab École schools, and there was 3 founding members: Ricardo, the chef, the celebrity chef in Quebec; Pierre Lavoie, fitness guru; Pierre Thibault, an architect. They lobbied the government. That's it,
Mhm.
and their line was, if you could rethink how schools are built, how they're designed, if you could bring more light, more natural woods, more collaborative spaces, more focus on movement and nutrition and gardening and access to the outside, if you could change how schools are designed, it didn't put this in, but I put it in to make them look less like prisons, because schools were not designed with this beautiful architecture in mind.
Yeah.
From the industrial model blocks that to be very efficient, but not what's best for kids. So if you could rethink, redesign schools and improve the health outcomes, which could
Mhm.
ultimately improve the learning outcomes. So the rethinking the design and the philosophy, and the philosophy one of more learning through movement, learning through doing, and through collaboration. And they got funding for 6 schools. We were the only English school in Quebec, so the only school in this region. So we were delighted to be selected. It took a long time. The team, myself and the team, worked with the architects and the Lab École committee for 4 or 5 years before the building began. The funniest, well, I know it's funny, but it's true and it's real. When I went to the staff on the very first, and this would probably be the same in every school in the country, I went to the staff and said, okay, just imagine we could redesign, we could start again. We could
Yeah.
build a school, everything that we know from our research, our experience, innovation, everything we know, we could start again and build a school. What would we do? How would we build it? And then hands go up, and I was excited. I was like, yes, more parking. Okay. Besides more parking, more storage. Okay, besides that, and then more bathrooms. I was like, oh, it was just, that was the starting point, and
Yeah.
and that's comforting for staff. The parking, but
Clearly, these were friction points.
Yes, once we got past that, and then the imagination started to go wild, and then you start to realize what we could do differently. But it's scary. It's scary for staff to let go of not just habits, but their experiences in school, and what school has always been defined to them as students and as staff. So as we inched along, reimagining a building, reimagining what school could look like, it was a fabulous process because we did it collaboratively. We
Yeah.
did it in a way that we didn't know where we were going except for the guidance of the Lab École team, and just kept nudging and pushing us. So when this building, after 2 years of intense construction, and we were in the building, it is so gorgeous. It's state of the art. The wood, the light, the access to outdoors, the kitchen. It's just it's used by our kindergartens to grade sixes, and they're making um, brownies or healthy snacks almost every day. So a kid to learn about the measurement, learn about the nutrition, and then sample their own foods. That's doesn't feel like learning. It's
Right?
it's just joy. It's just fun. And on
Yeah.
top of that, they part of the investment was a hydroponic fleet of hydroponic systems. So we have three large hydroponic systems that can grow 90 heads of lettuce each in 6 weeks. So the kids are tending to the hydroponics. They're learning about um, the science of hydroponics, and they're watching it with fascination as the lettuce grows in front of their eyes. And then when they harvest it, and when we use our grants to get tomatoes and to cucumbers, and for them to be able to cut the cucumbers and tomatoes and serve the salads to kids being put in positions to take care of other kids, to serve other kids, to serve meals. The excitement, the joy that they get from that, it's unbridled. You cannot match that with any other kind of learning and any other kind of leadership training or confidence building. It just starts to unfold and build in a way that you go, this is what you want in healthy development. This is what you want in good
Yeah.
citizens. And so giving them the opportunities in luckily for us in a state of the art facility now
Mhm.
can take us to that next level. But we're still
Yeah.
inching our way along. We've so far to go, but the journey's the fun. It's
Yeah.
it's
Well,
play.
you talked about bringing the staff team together, nudging them out of
The
this
comfort
image of
zone.
school, yeah, the comfort zone, but this image of school you've had for
Yeah.
60 years. And many teachers, they went to school as a child. They went to school to learn how to teach in a school, and then they went back to teaching in a school. Like you've never left school, so imagining things differently is hard. You've not known different yet. So huge, like I've had the chance to see the school and like that giant atrium library with the big staircase full of sunlight, and then you can open those doors up into the courtyard. um it's just such a nice place to be, whether or not there were excited students in the building, because of course I went on a day where students were not in session, and it was a nice quiet place to be with just a couple of students playing hide and seek throughout the building.
But
um
it is transformative
yeah.
in terms of just how people feel and now the experiences that they're going to have. And it's something about that the light that's coming through
Yeah.
with that natural wood, and people are sitting in peace and in ease, which helps reduce that anxiety. There's more
Mm.
spaces for kids to go, areas to collaborate. And it's I am like a scientist right now, just watching and documenting and seeing how this is changing kids' experience in school and with each other and with their teacher and with their learning. And it's exciting. And I know everybody doesn't have a new school, but we have come from the most challenging circumstances of any school
Yeah.
to get here. So I've seen both sides, but I know what the potential is, and I would be standing on any rooftop yelling to any governments to help invest in building new schools to
Yeah.
help our kids have these experiences and help them not just grow intellectually and socially, but emotionally and psychologically when they feel more safe in school. And then, as you said, Kathleen, that access to the outdoors, how
Yeah.
easy it is for our children to get outdoors, and it's not such a big arduous task for teachers to take them out. It's right in front of us.
You walk out the door. Yeah. So just, as we're wrapping up, like you've had this rethinking pedagogy that then has led to also rethinking school design with this wonderful opportunity you were able to have. And they've just created this virtuous cycle of bringing more excitement, bringing more activity, bringing more nutrition, bringing more sunlight. The changes in pedagogy are reinforced by the changes in the environment that you're, like the physical environment that you're teaching in. So I think there's so many lessons to be learned. I'm glad you're, looking at it with the scientist hat on, because I think there's continually like, let's share this because there's clearly something positive happening here. So David, thank you so much for joining us and sharing the work you've been doing. It's such an inspiration. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Maybe you should go around the school and wish a few of the students happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, bring the shamrocks around. Luck to everyone.
And lovely talking to you, Kathleen. Thank you very much for having me on the podcast.
Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.